Friends, as we move into the heart of our program this morning, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Lisa Kirkpatrick. She will be introducing our main speaker. Dr. Kirkpatrick is the St. Edward's University Vice President for Student Affairs and Administration. And as well, she serves as the chair of the Board of Governors of the Holy Cross Institute. Lisa Kirkpatrick.
Good morning, everyone. Usually in this room, we're addressing our orientation families and new students. So this is great fun to welcome all of you here to St. Edward's. For many of you, it's a return visit, and we're happy that you're here. I pray you're continuing to experience radical hospitality and community that all of us share in Holy Cross. And I want to again thank Dr. Bouch and his team for the hard work and preparation for your arrival. So it's a true honor to be up here to talk and introduce to you Brother Paul Bednarczyk, C.S.C., who will spend this morning sharing his wisdom and insights with us. As humble as he is, I want to tell you about him and not assume anything. You will see that he very much shares a path that is similar for all of us in some way or another. Brother Paul entered the Congregation of Holy Cross after graduating from Notre Dame High School in West Haven in 1975, not that long ago. He made his vows in 1979 and perpetual vows in 1985. Brother Paul earned degrees in English and religious education, working as a teacher, an administrator, and a campus minister at Bishop McNamara High School and Notre Dame International School. He also served as vocation director and formation director for his province. In 2002, Brother Paul became executive director of the National Religious Vocation Conference, where he led studies on religious vocations and also founded the National Fund for Catholic Religious Vocations. His leadership extended to various boards and commissions. I lost count while I was reading his bio, but it's impressive. And he's been invited to give workshops worldwide. In fact, some of you have very much experienced that over the years. And you know how blessed we are to have him here today with us. In 2016, he was elected first assistant vicar general of the Congregation of Holy Cross. And in 2022, he became the 14th superior general of the congregation, making history as the first brother superior general in the Catholic Church. And he currently resides in Rome at the Holy Cross Generalate. Brother Paul's journey is truly inspiring. His lifelong commitment to the Congregation of Holy Cross and his leadership in vocation ministry reflects a deep dedication to service and the spiritual growth of others. His leadership at the National Religious Vocation Conference and his work in promoting vocations through studies and grants have undoubtedly had a significant impact on many people. Moreover, his election as the 14th Superior General of the Congregation of Holy Cross is a remarkable milestone. In other words, a really big deal, highlighting his trailblazing role as the first brother Superior General in the Catholic Church's history. His experience spanning across education, administration, and formation gives him a truly unique perspective on religious life and vocations, as well as the work that we all do as Holy Cross educators for all of our students and all of our families. Yesterday morning, when Jesse and Deacon Ricky asked questions of this audience, I watched hands fly up. So many of us are proud of the years that we have put into Holy Cross education. And many of us had the blessing of experiencing a Holy Cross education too. Brother Paul is one of us, and he appreciates and he understands the challenges that we face. We are most eager to learn from you today, Brother Paul. We know that you get the transformative work that we do. We know that you get that we have to constantly reimagine ourselves into the future to be there for our students and our families. This year of mission, this Hope Beyond Borders, it couldn't be more connected to the theme of the conference that we spent a great deal of time building up and we are so grateful for your presence. So I turn it over to you now, and I ask the audience to please welcome Brother Paul to the podium.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Lisa, for that very warm reception. Just to clarify, we've had Brother Superior Generals in the church before. Okay, I was the elected first Brother Superior General of a clerical institute in the church. Okay, because we have priests and brothers, so I just want to acknowledge that. I was promised Texas sunshine. I'm just coming from Montreal, where we had the dedication of our new welcome pavilion at St. Joseph's Oratory. And there was over 2.5 feet of snow on the ground, and it was about 0 degrees. So I was hoping for a little warm weather, but I'm told it is going to warm up soon. Father Emmanuel, Brother Prodip, and I are truly delighted to share in these days of Convocation with you. I'm especially grateful to Dr. Richard Bouch and his staff for allowing me this time to speak with you about our upcoming year of mission, which I have declared for the Congregation of Holy Cross beginning on the 28th of April of this year. The General Council and I have purposely chosen this date for its significance, as it is the 185th anniversary of Father Moreau's sending his first Holy Cross missionaries outside of France to Algiers in 1840. My purpose this morning is to put this special year into a context of the larger church, our world, and congregational reality, and to solicit your support for the goals we have set for this year in each of your schools, with your boards, administration, faculty, and students. Excuse me. I forgot about this. In the summer of 2022, the Congregation of Holy Cross held its general chapter in Rome. This meeting, which takes place every 6 years, gathers elected representatives in the congregation from around the world. And our purpose is to review the state of our common life and mission as religious of Holy Cross, to pass legislation to guide the congregation in the next 6 years, and to elect our general leadership. That's how you got me. In the final legislation that was passed at the chapter, the capitulants were clearly looking for a renewal of our mission in Holy Cross, and in particular of our global mission. In the preamble to the Mission and Ministry section, we read the following: "We thereby seek to embody with renewed energy and zeal the mission of Jesus through our baptism and vowed life as apostolic religious. We share in his prophetic ministry, and we now ask ourselves, how might we create a more profound sense of the global mission, of the global Holy Cross mission to do God's work?" I have to admit that this question from the general chapter has haunted me since the beginning of my term as Superior General, especially as I look to the call of the Church to greater missionary discipleship and the Pope's challenge to all religious to respond to the pressing needs of our fragile world. As you know, Blessed Basil Moreau founded the Congregation of Holy Cross for the mission of evangelization with a preferential option for the poor. Although we in Holy Cross have remained faithful to our founding charism over these many years, our history has shown that our mission and our understanding of it continues to evolve in relation to the needs of the Church and society. Our constitutions tell us, however, that the mission is not simple, for the impoverishments we would relieve are not simple. A little sidebar about this picture of Father Moreau. This is a sidebar. As you know, we recently celebrated the 150th anniversary of Father Moreau's entrance into eternal life. I have commissioned a painting to commemorate that occasion, and the artist wanted all pictures of all the people who were present. So I had submitted the one photo we had of Father Moreau as well as the formal portrait. That was insufficient. So she used this is an AI-generated image of Father Moreau. She also sent me an image of Father Moreau speaking, which was really creepy. But anyhow, if you recall 2 years ago, I gave you the picture of Father Moreau smiling, so now we have an AI-generated image. Clearly, today's world is also far from simple. Both religious fundamentalism and secularism each pose a threat to our ministries. Polarization around race, economic class, and politics abounds. Refugees are fleeing their countries because of poverty and violence, and our planet suffers from unprecedented climate change. I believe that these global realities beckon us as the Congregation of Holy Cross to respond prayerfully, thoughtfully, and creatively to our church and our current world situation, and to look at our mission with fresh eyes and with our founder's customary hope and trust in divine providence and missionary zeal. These challenges also remind us that we cannot rely on what we have always done before. To do so not only risks irrelevance, but even worse, it means failing to provide hope to people who depend upon us to live out our God-given charism and mission with fidelity and zeal. In Evangelii Gaudium, Pope Francis challenges all communities to be missionary in their efforts towards evangelization. And I quote him, "In our day, Jesus' command to go and make disciples echoes in the changing scenarios and new challenges to the church's mission of evangelization. And all of us are called to take part in this new missionary going forth. Each Christian and every community must discern the path that the Lord points out. But all of us are asked to obey his call to go forth from our own comfort zone in order to reach all the peripheries in need of the light of the gospel." He further goes on to write, "I invite everyone to be bold and creative in this task of rethinking the goals, structures, styles, and methods of evangelization in their respective communities." Last year, I had the privilege with the president and board of trustees of the University of Notre Dame to meet with the Holy Father at the Vatican. In his address to us, Pope Francis indirectly touched upon the same theme of going out to spread the good news to those who are most in need. The Holy Father said the following: "We cannot stay within the walls or boundaries of our institutions, but must strive to go out to the peripheries and meet Christ in our neighbor. In this regard, I encourage the university's continuing efforts to foster in its students zeal for meeting the needs of underprivileged communities." In response to Pope Francis, we in Holy Cross, like the Church and every Christian, are challenged to find new pathways in fulfilling our mission and our apostolates. While our mission, like our charism, remains the same, we are asked to refashion it or adapt it at times in order to revitalize it in light of the church's and society's needs. With this being said, and given Pope Francis's missionary call, our general chapter legislation, and our current ecclesial, global, and congregational realities, I believe the time is ripe for the Congregation of Holy Cross and for all of those who partner with us in our apostolates to give serious and prayerful reflection to our mission as a congregation. On Christmas Eve, I, along with the general ed community, watched as Pope Francis opened the holy doors, or as he called them, the doors of hope, inaugurating the year of Jubilee. This holy or Jubilee year ordinarily occurs every 25 years in the Catholic Church. The theme of this Jubilee is Pilgrims of Hope. In his homily, the Holy Father said that we are called to recover lost hope, to renew that hope in our hearts, and to sow seeds of hope amid the bleakness of our time and our world. So many in our world have lost their hope, whether it is in the corruption that they find in their government, the failures and sinfulness of their church and leaders, the dysfunction they may find in their own families, the injustices of an inequitable economy, and the list can go on and on. Tragically, this loss of hope can easily feed into a sense of cynicism or despair, which is the antithesis of the gospel message. As members of the Holy Cross family, we say that we are men and women with hope to bring. We embrace Jesus' promise of the coming of the kingdom of God. We see the cross as our only hope because it leads us to the resurrection and the promise of eternal life. In our Holy Cross constitutions, we read, "There is no failure that the Lord's love cannot reverse, no humiliation he cannot exchange for blessings, no anger he cannot dissolve, no routine he cannot transfigure. All is swallowed up in victory." This is our faith. And why do we believe that? We believe it simply because Jesus told us so. This is what makes us pilgrims of hope. This powerful witness of such a gospel-centered hope cannot be underestimated and is needed now more than ever. So how do we bring a renewed and comforting sense of hope in God and the gospel of Jesus Christ to our students and families in a culture and society that is slowly becoming more de-Christianized? As we look at the bleak peripheries in our neighborhoods, who are those who can benefit from such hope? And how can we sow seeds of hope to them? This special year of mission is meant to help us in Holy Cross to respond to these questions and challenges. Our designated theme for the year, Hope Beyond Borders, beautifully coincides with the message of hope inherent in the year of Jubilee, much like it coincides with your own theme here for this convocation. The goals that the General Council have set for this year is to provide the congregation with the following opportunities. 1, to reflect upon the mission entrusted to us by our founder, Blessed Basil Moro, in light of the pressing needs of our church and our world, to find ways of renewing our missionary zeal as men and women of hope and educators in the faith who make a preferential option for the poor, to nurture within us a greater freedom and commitment to go wherever the mission calls us, and to inspire our partners in ministry to embrace more deeply their own call to the Holy Cross mission. The theme that we have chosen, Hope Beyond Borders, encourages us to reach out and cross not only the physical borders that separates nations and states, but all borders and walls that we construct between ourselves and others, whoever those others might be. That is why our constitutions say that our mission sends us across borders of every sort. It's not just geographical borders, it's borders of every sort. A hope that goes beyond borders means being willing to venture out, as Pope Francis says, from our comfort zones, to leave behind the familiar and to go forth in an encounter with the unfamiliar to see whom and what we might encounter. This can take the form of meeting new people and cultures, developing new capacities in ministry, or embracing new paradigms that require creative ways of thinking and planning. We make these efforts so that our Holy Cross mission becomes more effective in bringing the good news of God's love to all parts of the world and to all people in all societies. Living mission in this way transforms borders from being barriers between people to becoming places of encounter. Ultimately, hope beyond borders leads us to a deeper communion with men and women everywhere who share our desire to live in a more just and human society. We are placing this year under the patronage of two Holy Cross religious who were great messengers of hope. Servant of God, Brother Flavian Laplante, worked tirelessly for the welfare of the fishermen of Bangladesh and their families, even to the point, fascinating stories, even to the point of rescuing some of the fishermen from pirates in the Bay of Bengal. Servant of God, Bishop Vincent Macaulay, was the leader in establishing the first mission in Uganda, eventually becoming the first bishop of the Diocese of Fort Portal, and assisting thousands of refugees, widows, and orphans from the political turbulence of the 1960s and 70s in Uganda. Both of these men fearlessly crossed many borders in their lifetime, and their lives of holiness continue to inspire many. The General Administration has already crossed one border, responding to a global mission with the establishment of our new Holy Family mission in Bougainville, Papua New Guinea. As I mentioned before, it was the dream of our founder that his newly founded Congregation of Holy Cross would be missionary in nature. He sent his first missionaries to Algiers. He sent them to Poland. He sent them to Italy, Canada, and the United States. After World War II, the congregation vigorously established missions in East and West Africa, Haiti, Chile, Peru, and Brazil. However, we have not opened a new mission in Holy Cross in about 40 years. Our last mission was established in Rwanda by the Canadian province of Brothers. Tragically, we closed that mission when 5 of our brothers and 1 Holy Cross priest were brutally massacred during the genocide. In response to the General Chapter's call to respond to a mission in a new country where Holy Cross has not been before, the General Council decided to do what Father Moreau did, and that is to respond to the needs of the Pope and the local church. As a result, I met with Cardinal Louis Tagle, the pro-prefect of the Dicastery of Evangelization. And I asked the Cardinal the simple question, where in the world is the greatest need for religious today? We had a robust conversation about Ethiopia, Eritrea, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Latin America. It was absolutely fascinating. But after that conversation, the Cardinal said he would get back to me. 4 weeks later, we received his response, Papua New Guinea. And I said, and the other option? He said, Papua New Guinea. I left his office going to my phone, trying to find on the map where Papua New Guinea was. I knew it was somewhere in the South Pacific. Having received 12 applicants for this new mission, we finally accepted 4 brothers and 4 priests from Bangladesh, the United States, India, Ghana, and Uganda, who will be our pioneering missionaries in this new venture. This summer, they were in Rome for a 2-week orientation at our generalate. I can attest that these men are quality religious with true missionary hearts of zeal. If it were up to them, they would have left for Papua New Guinea directly from Rome. However, after an extended wait for visas and work permits, thankfully, they will depart in a couple of weeks in March, about middle of March. They will depart for the new mission, where I am certain that they will cross many borders in their efforts to be pilgrims of hope to the people whom they have called to serve. The Bishop of Bougainville has given us 2 parishes, each with a school on the campus, with other mission stations and schools in the outlying areas of the parish boundaries. Just by divine providence, the bishops of Papua New Guinea were meeting in Rome with the Holy Father for their ad limina visit. And we had a Zoom meeting with the nuncio saying, where do we begin? And he said, I suggest that you go to the Diocese of Bougainville. He said, the bishop is religious. He'll be very supportive. It's safe. And the diocese, and Bougainville is about 70% Catholic. The bishop is from Poland, too, so we hit it off. So we invited him for lunch, and we had a 2-hour meeting with him, and we said, well, what is the next step? He said, you come and visit. So Father Emmanuel and I and some other Holy Cross religious went on an exploratory trip. And I believe we have a video that will be shown at the banquet this evening, a 6-minute video about that, about the new mission. I'll tell you now, I don't look my best. My luggage was lost for the entire trip. So I was in borrowed clothing. And, well, anyway, that's another sidebar. Despite all of this, I truly believe that Father Moreau has been guiding our efforts at establishing this mission from the beginning. And I'm confident that Father Moreau will continue to intercede to God on our behalf so that these pioneer missionaries will be effective and hopeful signs of the kingdom to the Church of Bougainville. It is my hope that this new mission initiative will now spur our many jurisdictions around the world to consider exploring additional ministry options in other countries where Holy Cross has not served before. I humbly ask your prayers for the success of our new mission. Mission, however, is not just about doing good work in a foreign land. Our mission is first and foremost God's mission, born of the Father, who sent his Son, Jesus, into the world. It is the Spirit of Jesus that inspires and guides the diversity of charisms and ministries within Holy Cross. Mission is what you do every day in your schools. In light of this, it is my hope that this year would provide the impetus for all Holy Cross jurisdictions, ministries, and apostolates, not only to reflect on how we currently carry out our Holy Cross mission, but also to seek the guidance of the Holy Spirit in discerning new ways forward in mission. The goal is for our reflection to lead to action, whereby we might provide hope to those who remain on the periphery and who are most in need. Again, I quote our constitutions, which you've heard before. In regards to mission, disciples must have the competence to see and the courage to act. We need to see what are the needs, but we must have the courage to act upon those needs. I'm appealing, therefore, to you to use this year of mission as a period of discernment, to find ways to renew our goal of evangelization and outreach to the poor in your own school. After this discernment, I'm requesting a written response to the general administration, roughly to the following questions. We'll refine this later on. But basically what we are looking for is, in what ways has your jurisdiction, ministry, or apostolate traditionally been effective in its mission of evangelization and outreach to the poor? How has your ministry been a source of hope for the people you serve? What are the pressing and unmet needs of the neighborhood or society in which you live? Who are those that remain on the peripheries, and who might benefit from the mission and hope your ministry brings? What are the borders you must cross in order to reach them? And then finally, what action or actions will you be willing to undertake in order to meet the pressing needs you have identified? How do you foresee these actions as bringing hope to those who need it the most? I will ask for those responses to be sent to us in Rome by June 1st of 2026. More details about how the general administration will collect your data will be shared in the future. But our plan is to collect and collate all of the actions or new mission initiatives that each apostolate in the congregation of around the world will undertake. These actions will be published, and it is my intention to present a composite of these responses to the Holy Father, showing him how we, as the congregation of Holy Cross, have been pilgrims of hope during this Jubilee year, crossing borders around the world, bringing hope to the poor, oppressed, and most forgotten. At the end of this year, whether we take small or big steps forward in our mission is inconsequential. What is important is that we take some step as a hopeful sign of the kingdom, supporting men and women of grace and goodwill everywhere. The General Administration has developed a website for the Year of Mission. And here on this website, you'll find multiple resources to assist you in commemorating this special year. We have the Year of Mission prayer, logo, and banners. We have quotes of Father Moreau on mission, as well as former popes, St. John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, and Pope Francis, in addition to some writings of our superiors general. We also commissioned a hymn for this year entitled, Let Us Be People of Hope. The composer is Stephen Warner, the former director of campus ministry of music at the University of Notre Dame. You may be familiar with his music of Cross Our Only Hope. He was the composer of Cross Our Only Hope. We have a recording of that hymn, which was done by the University of Notre Dame Newman Vocare Ensemble in Dublin, Ireland. We also have a full octavo of that with a simple version as well, a simple melody version. And we have that in both English and French to our French confreres and our French partners here. So, and we also have a recording in French as well. We have biographical information on our two patrons, Servant of God and Brother Flavian LaPlante and Bishop Macaulay. And we will also be offering webinars throughout the year. Our first webinar will be on the 8th of May of this year, and that will be with Brother Joel Gialanza, who will reflect on Father Moreau's concept of mission. This website will be periodically updated throughout the year with additional resources. I am especially grateful to Father Emmanuel Talaraco, our first assistant and vicar general, who was present with us, who has chaired a committee to assist us in developing resources for this special year. I also want to thank publicly the members of the task force who I believe are present with us. Dr. Liz, there she is, front row. President of Moreau Catholic High School in Hayward, California. And I don't know if he's here, but Michael Jeswak, there he is in the back standing, knowing, the Associate Director of Holy Cross Mission Center at Notre Dame. I am truly grateful for all that you have done to help kickstart this year. Lastly, on behalf of our Holy Cross brothers and priests, and if I may be so bold to include our sisters as well around the globe, I sincerely want to thank you for partnering with us in this glorious mission entrusted to us by our Holy Founder. Your dedication and commitment to making God known, loved, and served in our educational institutions are not only inspiring, but extremely humbling as well. Let us continue to learn from each other, for it is with this unity of heart and mind that we will find our strength and our hope together. I would like to conclude with the words of Father Moreau, and you're familiar with this because it's taken from his Christian education. Father Moreau wrote, "Hurry then to this work of the resurrection. It is in this way that you will prepare the world for a better time. Through the intercession of Brother Flavian and Bishop Macaulay, and with the loving guidance of Our Lady of Holy Cross, our beloved patroness, I am confident that together, during this special year of mission, we will prepare that better time for both our church and our world. Thank you, and may God bless you and our Holy Cross family." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Paul. So, Brother Paul described people of hope and stories of courage. He talked a lot about the importance of being uncomfortable, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. He also spoke to the importance of reflection and discernment that leads to action and living out our mission. And he proposed complex questions, and we all have a lot of homework to do now. A year. That's what all the teachers say, right? You've got plenty of time. We all know we need to get to work. Now what we're going to do is invite you all to be able to think about the questions that you have to engage in conversation in here this morning. So we have some questions, and I encourage you to continue to submit them. But having had a chance to take a break, commune with your colleagues, and also reflect on what Brother Paul shared, here is a question for you, Brother Paul. How can we more effectively share the goals of Holy Cross with our lay collaborators so that they too do not trudge in this work of the resurrection?
I think there's a very simple answer to this, and many of our schools have been doing this for like 30 years, or our 3 provinces of brothers have been doing this. Constant in service about the charism, about the mission with your faculties, with your lay collaborators, orientation for new teachers, when new teachers come in. Because what I find is that people, once they know they're connected to something greater than themselves, they get very excited. You know, the fact that we have people here from France, from Haiti, from Brazil, from Uganda, from Ghana, Bangladesh, it speaks of an internationality, a global awareness, and it speaks that you're part of something greater. And what I have found over the years is that people get on fire because they're not just teaching an English class, but they're really doing it within the context of a mission. And often with young people especially, they are mission driven. And if they know that there is a purpose, they're looking for a greater purpose in what they're doing. So I think that constant orientation in service, talking about those values, and it takes time. It takes time. As you can see, this has taken over 30 years, before we can bring such an auspicious group together. It takes time, but it also takes a commitment on our part. I'll tell you, I went to Notre Dame West Haven, and we had I believe there were probably, John, about 28 brothers on faculty when I was there. Nobody talked about Father Moreau. I didn't even know who Father Moreau was. Nobody talked about Holy Cross education. You just had all these brothers teaching you, and they kind of encapsulated the charism. And then later, when our numbers were diminishing, we kind of woke up and said, we have something very special here. How do we package this, and how do we carry on this? And so then the work started. With preparing our faculty members, and so you have become these men and women of hope. You have become evangelizers in the faith. You have become part of us and part of the Holy Cross family in that awareness.
Thank you, Brother Paul. So these questions range, continuum. Could you help us understand better the role of the sisters in Holy Cross and also their role PJP process?
In what?
With their PJP process, their role in the PJP process.
Okay. Okay. The public juridic person. Okay, I was thinking so. As you know, Father Moreau had a vision to found a group of, he assumed the role of superior for the Brothers of St. Joseph. And at that time, he was also drawing together a group of auxiliary priests. And when he assumed the role of superior for the brothers, he brought together the priest and brothers founding the Congregation of Holy Cross. It was part of his vision to have the women included within the same congregation. Okay? That was part of his vision. Now, when we look at the church today, we would say, well, that was a pretty radical thing to do, even today. All right? When you think back to 1835, 1837, it was even more radical. So then Rome said, yeah, okay, the priests and brothers are fine, but the women, all right, they're going to have to go off on their own. And that's when the Marianites became their own congregation. And then, of course, the Marianites still embraced Father Moreau as their founder. And then later, when the Marianites came to Canada and to the United States, they broke off from the Mother House in France, and you had the Sisters of the Holy Cross and our Sisters of Holy Cross in Canada. But again, we trace our roots to Father Moreau. The sisters share the same tradition and the same charism and have done wonderful, wonderful education throughout the years. At one time, the Holy Cross Sisters were the largest women's religious congregation in the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. The women were courageous. They were nurses during the Civil War. All right, they had founded schools, they had founded hospitals, great pioneering women. In Bangladesh, again, the Sisters' School is one of the best for women in the country. All right, the sisters are part of us, but they are the three congregations. We are every 2 years, the four congregations, the superiors general as well as the councils get together for a meeting every 2 years. The Solitude of the Savior is the mother house in Le Mans, and we're becoming even closer because we're looking to share responsibility for that, to make it a pilgrimage house in the future for those that come to Le Mans. So we have a very, very close relationship with our sisters, but we're four separate congregations. The sisters are not part of the PJP, okay? They are not part of the PJP. And that, I don't know the reason for that. I haven't been integral in any of those conversations. But the PJ, the public juridic person, will be for the schools of the Moreau province as well as for the Midwest province.
Thank you, Brother Paul. Now we'll move on to a different topic, AI, which you tapped very well in your slide.
I'm such an authority on AI.
Well, we're about to ask you, what is your perspective on AI at our schools and universities, and how perhaps should we be helping our students with AI?
You know, recently in Rome, there was a whole conference on AI, and the Vatican recently released a document on AI. Like anything in technology, it is a gift. And with all those resources that we have, if it is used for good purposes, why not take advantage of it? I also know that, Father Jack Ryan, who's our general steward, he was former president of King's College, and he took all of his faculty addresses in 10 years and inserted it into AI and created a podcast like that. And he sent it to, it was absolutely amazing. Because people, like, you have these voices that are conversing about what Father Jack said, and this was done within seconds. So that they're great tools for technology. However, as the Pope has said, we also have to think beyond on the ethics of AI, and how do we ensure an ethical code of AI. I'm not an authority on artificial intelligence. I've never even used it, to be truthful with you. I've read some things about that, but incorporating it, I think, within the schools is important. But again, I also know the threat of they can generate papers, they can generate reports, and there are tools that you can put in to see if it was AI generated, correct? So that's where you have to be. I think teachers have to be very, very cautious. Again, as long as we respect the tool and it work in favor for us there.
Thank you, Brother Paul. Here's another question.
This is an easy one.
Yeah, well, I don't really think there are any that are easy that we're getting. Is evangelization referring to spreading the Holy Cross charisms or converting people to Catholicism? I've heard the term used differently at this conference.
Mm-hmm. I would define this by what Pope Benedict said. Pope Benedict referred to, qualified evangelization, that as Christians, we don't proselytize. All right, we're not proselyte. The purpose of evangelization is not to make all these pagan babies into Catholics. All right, that maybe was a former understanding when I was in grade school. All right, but as Pope Benedict said, we evangelize through our witness, through our gospel witness, through fairness, through love, through compassion, through mercy. That's exactly what Jesus did. All right, that's exactly when you look through the gospel, what did Jesus do? He went out to the peripheries, went to the Samaritan woman, went to the leper, went to the tax collector, those who were ostracized by society. Who are those who are ostracized by society today? All right, and it was his approach. He recognized the dignity of each individual, and he recognized their humanity. He recognized their sinfulness, but he always offered them mercy, compassion, and forgiveness. That is what evangelization is. You evangelize by the witness that you do, that you give to your students. All right? And then people say, now there's a quality human being. All right? And that quality human being, there's values behind that, and that's supported by a faith. And that's what we're called to do. So we're not there to pound on people's heads, be Christian. All right. I was at our international school in Rome for 5 years. We had diverse. We had Muslims, we had Baha'i, we had Protestants, we had Jewish students. And my point when I was doing administration was there. I didn't care what religion you were. We want to support you in your religion. All right. Everybody had to take religion classes. All right. Everybody had to take religion. That was part of our mission. All right. But I can remember taking one of our students to the Jewish synagogue in Rome for Yom Kippur. All right. It was important that they be faithful to their own faith. All right. And that's the crossing of borders, okay, that we're talking about. I want you to be the best Lutheran. I want you to be the best Muslim in the best sense. All right. And how can I support you in that? There's a witness in that. There's a witness in that because it's different. All right. Jesus was different. And that's what caught people's attention. And that's why he followed. So when we talk about evangelization, it's not proselytizing. It's really through a Christian witness by being true to those gospel values.
Thank you, Brother Paul. I think that's probably the best I've ever heard it explained, and I appreciate your words. It helps all of us as educators continue to minister to all of the diversity in our classrooms and on our campuses.
That's our world, and we've got to be 11 in that world.
Yes. So another somewhat related question, how can lay partners in schools assist in the congregation's vocation recruitment efforts?
Well, I think we have some of our vocation people here. All right. I know, like there's National Vocation Awareness Week that you have, and I believe that is in November around All Saints Day. And then later you talk about, well, I find that sometimes, at least when I was vocation director and I would want to work with our schools, that sometimes our colleagues are uncomfortable talking about religious life. All right, maybe they don't know enough about it, or uncomfortable talking about priesthood because they may have some different notions of priesthood. But it's not only vocations to religious life or to priesthood, but it's also a vocation to marriage. All right, and maybe it's more comfortable to talk about marriage when you're married, but we've also got to be inclusive of the other vocations within the church, and that some are called to religious life, some are called to priesthood, some are called to married life, some are called to be single. Okay, and that's not necessary. And the single life is not necessarily formally recognized as a vocation. Okay, but there's value in that of somebody who chooses to be single. And that's where I think our vocation people need to provide resources, need to provide services, and being present as much as possible. I truly wish we could provide you with more priests and brothers and sisters in our schools. That would be wonderful. But you know our reality. Okay, our reality. Okay, the reality of the vocation, as our religious from Bangladesh can attest. In Bangladesh, we have between priests and brothers, I would say we're over 300, right, sister? About 300. Yes, but between the three groups, over 300 religious. The brothers of the St. Joseph province, they run 25 schools. Okay, with 2 to 3 brothers in each of those schools. Okay, our priests have, I believe, 4 colleges, the 3 colleges and 1 university in Bangladesh. They have a presence there. We can't provide the presence in all of our schools that we have. I wish we could. But that's where I think that coordinated effort on the part of our vocation directors, vocation offices, and engaging our partners in ministry, bringing them together and to see for like even a brainstorm session on how that could be done.
There was even a request in the questions about where could we find one of those brothers or priests that you're placing in Papua New Guinea to bring to our own campuses. Yeah.
Well, I got a little pushback with Papua New Guinea from some of our people saying that, we have other priorities. We need people here, we need people there. And I'm saying, well, yes, we do, but we could do both. Mm-hmm. We could do both.
Both and.
And it's, but now that I think that we have made this effort, I think there, at least from what I can perceive, and maybe some of Brother Prodip and Father Emmanuel, there's a lot of excitement around this because it speaks of life. It's a new initiative. They're young. Some were saying either too young, they're in their 30s. But I'm saying, well, look at the people that we sent to Africa. And they were in their 30s at the time, So how do we, this is where I'm saying, how do we keep, the mission remains the same, but how do we be faithful to that and to respond to our contemporary needs? This was a need of the church. And the reason why the Cardinal told me Papua New Guinea, he said it's part of the British Commonwealth, so English is common. They need a lot of support. The local clergy need a lot of support and in service. There are fewer religious there. The tribalism within the country when you bring an international group together, that in itself provides witness to the people, that people of diverse cultures and countries can live together when there may be some fighting amongst one another, amongst tribes. So there was a tremendous need, and that's what we're about, to respond to those needs. Truthfully, I thought we would get 2 to 3 people. I never thought we would get 8, but we had 12 applicants. So that even spoke of the enthusiasm of people. And I find that our younger people are especially excited about this.
Thank you, Brother Paul. Now, here's another really great question. In the spirit of crossing borders of every sort, how should Holy Cross cross borders without indulging ideas, especially culturally popular ideas that are at odds with Catholic Church teaching about God, the human person, or human sexuality?
Oh boy, that's a handful. I think you're already doing that. I think you're already doing that quietly. All right. I remember when as I keep saying, we just need to respect the dignity of people. And life right now is very complicated. And people lead complicated lives. And we just need to be present with them. I don't think we can remain in judgment, but I think we can quietly minister as you all have, given some of the various situations that you encounter. It is true, a lot of different, we are members of a wider church, but we're also members of a local church. And some bishops may be a little more vigilant about issues. Other bishops may be a little more open. So a lot depends upon the local bishop and how you handle that. I have always found that as long as you keep a good relationship with the bishop, no matter what persuasion he is, I think that is always in your favor. Inviting him to the school, making him present, and certainly reaching out. But I would say that probably, we are crossing borders already in quiet ways.
We appreciate that affirmation.
Am I right? Yeah, I'm right. Yeah, you do. You do every day, And you find creative ways of doing that,
Another interesting question, and I know we have people from all around the globe with us today. When you begin to consider a new missionary endeavor for the congregation, what other geographic regions did you consider? And how did you make that decision?
We were open. We approached this whole adventure with an openness to wherever wherever there was a need. So as I said, we met with Cardinal Tagle. We talked about all different options, and he came back to us with Papua New Guinea. So it's not like we chose this, but we were asked to do this, and we're responding to the need. That's what our founder did. I know, like some of our local jurisdictional chapters, they have in some of their legislation about looking. I know our brothers in Ghana, our brothers in Bangladesh, other jurisdictions are looking to go out to different countries. What that discernment process will look like for them, that would be up to them to do. But I'm certainly hoping that this year will be an impetus for them to make some direct action in that. I would love to see by the general chapter that either we are intending to go to 3 or 4 different countries that we're not present right now.
That's wonderful. So there's some eagerness about the questions that you've talked about and our homework assignments. Can you speak again to when the answers to the questions are due, and perhaps some additional guidance about how to approach those questions?
Yeah, so I think maybe what we can provide, I can even put this down for the council. We have a council meeting in March, but looking at just like how do you discern something like this? All right, like a discernment process, like a tool that would help you to do this. I think that probably would be helpful. I know all those questions that I gave you, that was a lot. Probably ultimately we have an online survey software, and probably will be done online, just seeking your responses. Probably not to all of those questions. It'll be a composite questions, because we don't want this to be difficult. We don't want this to be another thing that you would have to do. But we do want some practical action. If I just may give an example, some of us were at the inauguration of Father Robert Dowd, the new president of the University of Notre Dame. And in his inaugural speech, he spoke about mission. And he was saying how can, given that our church and our world is so polarized, how can the university be a bridge between our polarized world? How can it be a bridge of reconciliation? He also, said that the university would be a student loan-free university, the first faith-based institution, the first faith-based college or university to do this in the country. In other words, that the university will work as if you're accepted to the university, they will work with with some sort of payment plan. So you do not have to be kept down with student loans. That's a creative way of mission. Now, I'm not saying you all have to do that, but I'm just saying it's just looking at the mission in a creative way. Okay, so how the people that we were founded to educate, how do we provide them with an opportunity? And this was his way of trying to reach a more needful population. Or even being that bridge builder. All right, those are creative ways. And it was very thoughtful on his part. And that's just one example. So it's not like you have to recreate something. You can do something, all right, that would just really revitalize the mission. And I just think it would be very exciting for all of our parishes, all of our schools around the world to see this is what the congregation has embraced during this Jubilee year and during this mission year. And this, I would hope that we could publish and share with other people, because I just think it would be a very exciting contribution to the church as well as to our world.
It's really an opportunity to recommit and invite members across our community to engage in the dialogue.
It's just like why do you come to school every morning? Why do you get up and come to school every morning? Well, there's a purpose. Is it just for a paycheck, or is it for something greater? Okay, and how can we continue that in the future? And I think that would give life to the school. And it just, we have refashioned our mission over the years, and I think we're being called to do that again. And anybody who's done administration, I think sometimes you can get bogged down with the maintenance of maintaining things as they are, and you're always putting out fires, and that. We discussed this as a general council. That becomes draining after a while. And so then you leave a meeting and you're just exhausted. You're just drained. So we try to be very conscious in our council that there are issues that we need to deal with that require a different set of energy, okay, if you want to call it negative energy or whatever. But how do we balance that with something that is life-giving for us and for the congregation, and something that has a vision, all right, that we're not just maintaining something as it was, but what is that vision and how do we bring that? So we become very conscious of that in our administration.
I love the action orientation and how it hopefully will foster agency across our school communities too, at a time where you can feel a little out of control and off center.
Yes,
So.
you know, and I think this, and I think we could get a lot of good public relations for this as well once all of this is completed. The year of mission, for instance, it was picked up in the Vatican News. All right, we had a little news article in the Vatican News. So, you know, and that spurs on other religious communities when they read this. So I think all of that is just very helpful.
Thanks.
Are we done now?
Yes. 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 Do you feel like you're in the hot seat? But it's wonderful. Can we have a round of applause for Brother Paul? We are grateful to you, Brother Paul. Very, very grateful. No, we are very grateful. So, simply that gratitude on all of our parts. Rich, do you want to give some instruction about what's happening next?
Right now, to begin our breakout groups, there will be team members up there to help you find your table. We have questions there at the table to stimulate your discussion, but don't feel bound by the questions. The most important thing is the discussion itself and getting to know one another, crossing the borders and making those new connections. So have some great discussion. We'll see you upstairs. Thank you so much.